This video is a compilation of all of my Obsidian for project management videos. It includes things such as task management, project workflows, and dashboards that you can use to see the status of all your projects. There's a lot for us to cover, so let's dive right in. Obsidian is much more than a simple note-taking app. It's useful for any kind of project or productivity system, including as a daily task manager. In this video, we'll dive into the powerful community plugin Tasks, which enhances Obsidian's simple checkboxes with the ability to aggregate tasks from anywhere in your vault, set due dates, create recurring tasks, and so much more. By the end, we'll have built a fully fledged task manager, all contained within an Obsidian vault. For this project, I've started a brand new vault that I can work in. I'm going to be basing my task manager on my favorite standalone task manager, Things. Things is only available on Mac and iOS, so by building this inside of a cross-platform app like Obsidian, you'll have access to similar features that you could only get if you are on Mac. You're of course free to set this up however you like, but by using something like Things as a template, it'll be much easier to be able to show you all the amazing capabilities that the Tasks plugin offers. So we're going to go ahead and delete this welcome note. We don't need it. Then we're going to head on over into Settings. We're going to come down here to Community Plugins, and we're going to turn on Community Plugins. Go to Browse, and Tasks is a super popular plugin, so it appears right up at the top. So we're going to click on it, hit Install, and then hit Enable. We'll next click on Options, and this will take us to all the settings that are available for this plugin. We have two different format options for tasks to be able to find our tasks and be able to create them. The default is the tasks emoji format. This uses little emojis to be able to indicate due dates, start dates, and things like that. The other option you have is by using the Dataview plugin, which we're not going to get into in this video, so we're going to stick with the tasks emoji format. If you wanted to, you could have only certain checkboxes count as tasks. So you can add a special tag to any of the checkboxes that you want to be included in the tasks queries. We're not going to set that up. I want all of the checkboxes to be considered tasks in this vault. If you do have that special tag set up, by turning on this setting, it will prevent that tag from showing when you query for the tasks, so it won't clutter things up. The global query setting allows you to be able to set certain things that you want to have in every query. So for instance, if you created templates that had certain tasks already in them, you could make it so that the whole templates folder wouldn't show up by saying path does not include templates. That's actually something I do want in this case, so we are going to put that. We're also going to be creating a utilities folder that I don't want to show up either, so we're going to include that as well. Tasks can have different statuses, like if they're not being worked on yet, they're to do, and if they've been checked off, then they're considered done. So you can add and remove different statuses in this area if you'd like. There are some themes that include custom checkbox types already. One of those themes happens to be one that's based on the Things task manager. I'm actually going to hit this Add 22 supported task types, and this will add in all of the custom checkboxes that the Things theme gives us. We're going to install that theme in just a second. There are different settings for dates. If you want a created date to show up whenever you create a new task, you can turn that on. When you complete a task, this will automatically add in the date that the task was completed. You can also, when you cancel a task, the date will also get added in for that as well. So you can turn these on and off if you'd like. If the file name has a date in it, you can use that as the scheduled date for any of the tasks that are in that file. By default, recurring tasks will create a new version of the task above the completed task. You can have that go the other way around with this setting. There are different settings that you can do for auto-suggesting. We're just going to leave all of this the same for now. So I'm going to head over to Appearance now, and I'm going to go Manage under Themes, and we're going to go ahead and install the Things theme. So now we have those special types of checkboxes that we created custom statuses for. And now we're going to go over to Core Plugins, And we're going to make sure that the Daily Notes plugin is turned on. It is. We're going to be using that as the place where we enter in new tasks. We'll also have a log of completed tasks for each of those days. So let's go ahead and start getting this all set up. We're going to start by creating a new folder. We're going to make that templates folder that we said we wanted to exclude from our tasks query. And inside, we're going to create a new note. And this is going to be the Daily Note template. Hit enter. We're going to close this local graph view. I don't need that open right now. We're going to add in a heading here. We're going to do 2 hashes. We're going to say completed. And we're going to create our first task query. So in order to do this, we're going to hit the backtick 3 times. And that's up just below your escape key. And that will create a code block. And then we're going to write the word tasks. This will tell it that we want this to be a tasks query. So these are going to be tasks that are already completed. So we're going to say done, and we're going to say on, and then we're going to do 2 curly braces, and we're going to say date. So what this is going to do is, this is a template, so when we create a new daily note using this template, it's going to insert whatever the date is into that field for us, and then this query will then pull all the tasks that were completed on this particular date. It's going to show you this scary looking error. That's fine for this. It's saying that it can't find any tasks on the curly braces date because this is a template variable that we're putting here. This will work in a note that has that date get actually inserted. So it's okay, don't worry about it. We're going to do another heading too. It's hash, and this is going to be created. This is the area that we will set aside for creating new tasks. So let's head back over to the settings real fast. I want us to be able to set a few things in the daily notes settings. So this is what our daily note title is going to look like right now. I'm actually going to enter in a special syntax that will automatically organize these notes into year and month folders. So we're going to do 4 capital Y's for the year, then we're going to do a slash, and then we're going to do 2 capital M's for the month, another slash, and then 4 capital Y's again to get us the year, a dash, 2 capital M's for the month again, a dash, 2 capital D's for the day, and then we're going to do a space, and then 3 little d's. And as you can see, that's now going to put our note into a folder called 2024, and then a month folder, and then this is what the title of the note is going to be. It's going to be the date, followed by what day of the week it is. So because we've set it up this way, we don't actually need to give it a location to put these. This syntax is going to put those where we want them automatically. And we need to tell it where we want to find our daily note template. So we're going to do that right here. And we want the daily note to open at startup. The reason for this is because Obsidian is not great at quick capture. There's no way to get notes into it from outside of the app right now. At least not easily. So what we'll do is we'll have this daily note open at startup. So when you have a task that you need to record down quickly, you can open up Obsidian, you can open up this vault, and it will automatically go to that daily note, and you can quickly jot it down. So now that we got all the settings ready, we're actually going to create our first daily note. So let's close the settings. And we're going to create our first daily note by going over here to this calendar icon and clicking it. And as you can see, we've now created our first daily note. It's put it in this 2024, this 10 folder, and added in that title the way that we want it formatted. As you can see, we've got 0 tasks completed today. It created that date for us in our query. So now we're going to go down to this created section and start creating just a bunch of random tasks for us to work with. So to create a checkbox, you do dash, space, bracket, space, and then you do a space afterwards, and now we have a checkbox. And as you can see, it pulls up this little menu for us to be able to quickly add in things like due dates, start dates, scheduled dates. For right now, we're just going to say brand new task, hit enter. We're going to say another task, yet another task. We got all these random tasks created. Now we have something to work with to be able to create our different views that we want inside of our task manager. So we're going to create that utilities folder that I mentioned earlier. So let's close that, hit new folder. We're going to say underscore utilities, and then we're going to create a new note. The first one we're going to create is an inbox. So we'll title this one inbox, and then we're going to do those backticks and tasks. For our inbox, we want tasks that are not complete. They don't have any dates associated with them. They don't have any tags. They're not organized in any way. We just want plain, simple tasks. So we want tasks that are not done. We want no due date, no scheduled date, and no start date. So the task plugin does give you 3 different options for dates. They're pretty self-explanatory. You can use them however you want. So we're also going to say no tags, and then we're going to go ahead and hit enter afterwards. And this has now gone and queried throughout the whole vault to find the tasks that meet this criteria. So for right now, that's just the ones that we created inside of that new daily note. You may have noticed that there's this little pencil emoji next to the tasks. Let's go ahead and click on that, and that opens up a menu for us to be able to edit our tasks. These tasks don't actually live inside of this inbox note, but we can edit them, and it will go and it will make those changes to the task in whatever file it's in. So we can change what the text of the task is. I can say a brand new task, and I can put parentheses, yay. And then when I hit apply, it adds in that yay for me. So let's open that back up. We don't actually want it to say yay. You can set different priorities for your tasks using these little emojis, and this editor will just add those emojis in for you, and then the plugin will use those emojis to indicate, the priorities. It'll do the same thing for all the different dates that you can set, that due date, schedule date, start date. You can have tasks be reliant on each other, so if there's a task that you want to complete before this, or you need to complete before this, you can select from this list here. You can also do that for after, if there's a task that needs to be done after this one. You can set the status based on those custom statuses that we created earlier. You can also change the created or done or canceled dates. You could do all of this from this awesome menu, and it will save all of your changes for you. So to help us out with the next few views that I want to create, I'm going to add a due date to this one. And what's also great about this is you can use natural language to set these dates. So I can say tomorrow, and it will calculate the date based on what I type in. So tomorrow is October 2nd. I could also say I want this done on Friday, and it will give me the next Friday. So let's go ahead and hit apply. So that now has a date associated with it, which means it no longer shows up in our inbox because our query doesn't allow anything that has a due date. So it's now cleared, it's now processed out of our inbox. So we're going to do that with a few more of these. I'm going to add a scheduled date here. We're going to say today on this one. And I'm going to add a start date of, let's put tomorrow on this one. So as you can see, they're disappearing from our inbox, and this is how you can go through and actually process the tasks that are in your inbox. So I think we've got enough tasks to be able to start creating some of our other views. If we need to, we can come back here and edit a few more. Let's go over to our utilities folder and create a new note. We're going to create the today view. And we're going to do our 3 backticks. And we're going to say tasks. We want all these to be tasks that are not done. We want all the tasks that have today's date associated with them. But not only that, we want anything that has a date associated with it from before today that isn't done, because we want those things to carry forward. We don't want those tasks to get lost. So we want them to show up in our today view so that we can keep working on them. So what's nice is that there is a way of doing all of the different kinds of dates just in one query. We can say happens on or before today. And that will give us anything that has a date on or before today. I want our tasks to be grouped by tags. So tags is something that I'll show you how to add those to a task in just a second. So we're going to say group by tags. I want them to all be sorted by their status. So like to do or in progress. We want the in progress ones to go to the top of the list so that we can have those be in focus, and those are the ones that we want to get done next, right? Because they're in progress. So we want to say sort by status.type. We had just one of those tasks due or start or scheduled for today, so it's the one that we had scheduled. So this is the one that we're getting. This doesn't have a tag associated to it. Let's change that. We're going to hit our edit button again. To add a tag, we just add it to the description. So we're going to put a space here. We're going to give it a hash, and we're going to give this a hash of personal. Hit apply, and now it's showing up under the personal tag. So let's actually go back to our inbox and add another one of these tags in. So we're going to have this be work, and we're going to have it scheduled for yesterday. And let's go over to our day view, and we have it was scheduled yesterday but showing up in the today view because it's something we still want to keep working on, and they're now grouped by their tags. Now let's see how that sorting works. We're going to actually give this a tag of personal so that they're in the same list. And then we're going to make this in progress. So we actually need to go back into that menu, go to this status, say in progress, hit apply. As you can see, it popped that in progress up to the top so that that's the one that we focus on and we work on next. So that's our today view. Let's create another view. We're going to create a new note, and this one's going to be our upcoming. So anything that's going to happen down the line in the future. So let's do our query, say not done. And this is going to be anything that happens after today. And so these are the things that we had scheduled or starting in the future. We want these to actually be grouped by their dates. So we're going to actually go back up to this and we're going to say group by happens. And now we could see in a list all the different things that we have coming up under their dates. Let's add another view. This one is going to be the anytime view. So things that have been categorized using the tags, but don't have any sort of date associated with them. They're things that we can get done anytime. They don't have to be done on a specific date. So we're going to do anytime, do our query block, not done. And we're going to say no due date, no scheduled date, no start date, and we're going to say has tags. And we don't have anything that doesn't have a date associated with it or has a tag. So let's go ahead and change that. We'll go over to the inbox and we're going to click on this one. We're going to give it a tag of work, and it should be showing up in our anytime view. There it is. So this is something that we can get done anytime we want. Our last view is going to be the someday view. We're going to say someday. These are things that maybe we'll get to at some point, or maybe they're just not that important right now. We want to do them later. Or like I said, maybe there's something that we won't actually ever get to. So we put them on this someday list. We're going to do our task query here. We're going to say not done. And this one, we're going to say, there's no real way of saying someday with the dates. So we're actually just going to give it a tag of someday, or things that we want to show up here will have the tag someday. So to do that, we say tags include and then someday. We don't have any tagged with someday. Let's go back to our inbox. We'll grab this last task that we have here. We'll give it a tag of someday. And now that should show up under our someday list. Now I realize that this will also show up under our anytime because it has a tag and we don't have any way of saying that this someday shouldn't show up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into this. We're going to say has tags, but we're going to say tags does not include someday. And we will make sure that that someday task does not show up in our anytime task. So those are our views that we want to create for our task manager. I want these to be easily accessible. So I am actually going to create bookmarks for each of these. Let's go in and start with the inbox. To create a bookmark, we just go up to the bookmark tab here, and we're going to hit this create a bookmark icon, and we're going to title it inbox. We're going to hit save. Then we're going to go back to files. The next one that we will do is our today view. Add that in, hit save. What I like about putting these into bookmarks is that there's a kind of a dedicated kind of sidebar that we have now for these different views. And we can sort them however we want. So we have our inbox at the top, whereas in our file explorer, it's second in the list. So now it's in the order that I want it. Maybe you want the upcoming to be at the top. You can just drag that up and put it up at the top. And you can rearrange these however you want. So I'm going to put it back down. So we were doing tags with like a personal tag and a work tag. These are kind of like general areas or categories that we want to have our tasks be able to be put into. Now, maybe we want to be able to see all of the tasks that we have for work, or that we have for personal. We can create views for those things as well. So let's go back over to our files. We're actually going to create a new folder for this, and I'm going to call it areas. And then inside of that, I'm going to create a new note. We're going to call this work. We're going to do our now very familiar tasks block query. We're going to say not done, and we're going to say tags include work. And now anything that is tagged with work shows up in this area. We're going to create another one. We're going to call this personal. Not done. Tags include personal. And all of our personal tags now show up here. So now we can see those in a central place. If you want to, you can now go over to your bookmarks and you can create bookmarks for these. Let's create a personal one. So areas are kind of general categories of things that don't have like an end date. Work itself doesn't have an end date. Personal things don't have an end date. So these are the kinds of things that you can like create dedicated tags for and then create these dedicated views for. I'm going to add just a little bit of organization to these bookmarks. I'm going to create a bookmark group. We're going to call this areas. And I'm going to drag my personal and my work bookmarks into these areas. So they're a little bit separate from like these main views that I have going on up here. Now, what if you do have a project that you're wanting to manage here? Something that has a concrete deadline or end date. This isn't something that you necessarily want to create a tag for because it's something that will eventually end. So in order to accomplish this, I like to create kind of a dedicated project note type. So let's go over to our templates, create a new note, and we're going to do a project template. For this, we're going to be utilizing some properties. So we're going to do 3 dashes, and that gives us our properties. The first one we want to put in here is our deadline. And in order to make it a date field, we click on this little icon here. We go over to property type and we hit date. And then that will give us a date field that we can then pick from a date picker what we want the deadline to be. And then we're going to add a couple of headings in here. We're going to do our 2 hashes and we're going to say tasks. And then we're going to hit enter a couple times and we're going to do 3 dashes and that gives us a horizontal rule, a line here. And we're going to do another heading and we're going to call this one notes. So now we have a place for the tasks for our project and a place for the notes for our project. Now I want to create a projects folder to put our projects in. And inside of projects, I want a few different folders to kind of indicate different statuses. So we're going to create a new folder inside, where the first one is going to be active. So projects that are actively being worked on. Get another folder. We're going to call this one holding tank. So these are projects that are coming up that we haven't actually started yet. You don't want to have too many active projects at once. So having kind of a holding tank for future projects is a good idea so that you don't lose those projects, but you have a place to put them. Then our last folder I'm going to create is done. So projects that are completed. I'm going to create a new note inside of the active folder and we're going to say my awesome project. So we want to insert our project template into this file. So we're going to go over and click on this insert template icon. And as you see, I have not set a template folder for this vault. When you do that real fast, let's go over to settings. We're going to scroll down to the core plugins here. We're going to go to templates. And then we need to specify that the templates is our templates folder that we can pull from. So now clicking on that button again gives us our templates. We hit project. We now have this project. We give it a deadline by clicking over here. We'll say it's due by Saturday or whatever. So now we can add in our tasks, create, report, do something else. So with the tasks for projects, they just live inside of this project note. They will also get pulled into these other views as I add dates and things to them. Right now, if we go over to our inbox, they should be showing up in our inbox. These are things that haven't been sorted yet. And I can go in and I can sort them. Let's give this a due date of tomorrow. And let's give this one a due date of Wednesday. And this one a due date of Thursday. Now those have been sorted. I can go back over to my projects. Those now have those dates associated with them. So let's say you wanted to be able to edit them right within the project using that nice context menu. What you can do is you can open up the command palette. So you do Command P and then you can search for tasks and then go to create or edit task, hit enter. Because I had my cursor on that task, it will pull up the editing window for that task. Now, if you wanted to create a new task using that context, so I can hit enter a couple of times, open up the command palette,
Type task, creator, edit. Because the line that it was on didn't have a task, it now gives us the create a task window. So I can say the fourth task, and then we'll give this a scheduled date of today. And now we've got a brand new task. So you can add new tasks with that menu as well. And going back over to our today view, we should now have that fourth task showing up. It doesn't have any tags. It does, though, show you what file that task is coming from. It's coming from this My Awesome project, and it's also showing you what heading that task is under. If I click on this, I can go directly to that task inside of that project. So you don't have to necessarily search through your file system in order to get to your project. You can just click on the link from one of the tasks from your project. And then if the project has any notes, I can write them here. Something that you can do in Things is you can associate projects with areas. So in order to be able to do that in this case, we could add a property here of area and then just have a backlink to the area. And then I can click on this and I can go to that area and see all the tasks that are in that area. A couple other ideas of views that you could include here is you could have a view that shows you all of the tasks that have due dates or deadlines associated with them. So let's go over to our utilities again. We'll have a new note and we're going to say deadlines. Do our task query. We're going to say everything that's not done, and then we're going to say has due date. So anything that has a due date will now show up in our deadlines view. Another thing that you could add to this deadlines is maybe you want to see anything that is overdue. So we're actually going to create another task query, a separate one. We're going to say not done, and we're going to say due before today. Now, we don't have any due before today, so let's go ahead and maybe we'll say this one was due yesterday. And now that shows up here, and we can label this with overdue. And maybe we want to give it a call out here. So now we can very clearly see the things that are overdue. And then for this query down here, we'll actually say due on or after today. And that way we're not repeating the things that are in the overdue section. The task plugin has the ability to create recurring tasks, things that happen on a regular basis. So I'm going to create a note for that. Now I can't put that inside of utilities because that is one of the folders that we're telling it to not look in. And this is a file that we're going to actually put tasks directly into. So I'm just going to create a new note at the vault level. So we'll say recurring. And then I am going to use that command again, the task creator edit task, and we'll say take out the trash. Now we're going to have this recur, and it's going to be every week on Tuesday, we'll say. And then we'll have it scheduled for Tuesday. Let's have it be today so that we can see it in our today view. Let's go over to our today view, and we can see that we have take out the trash here on recurring. So let's say that I completed that task. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. It's now gone from our today view. Let's go back over to our recurring. You see it marked it as complete. It gave us a completion date, and then it created a new occurrence of that recurring task, and it automatically set it for the next Tuesday because it's set up to be every week on Tuesday. So anything that you want to have happen on a regular basis, you can put in this recurring file, and it will create new instances of that every time you complete them. And with that, we have a fully functioning task manager built inside of our Obsidian Vault. Dataview is a powerful Obsidian community plugin that can transform your vault into a searchable database. With Dataview, you can easily filter and collect notes based on any criteria. I personally use it to track tasks and projects across my entire vault. Dataview is incredibly flexible, and this can make it a little overwhelming for beginners. So in this video, we'll focus on some simple queries for setting up visually informative dashboards that will enable you to take quick action on important tasks and notes. I've made some updates to the Task Manager Vault that I built in a previous video. We're going to be working inside of the projects folder. This projects folder used to have 3 subfolders for active, future and completed projects, I've gone ahead and deleted those folders. We're not going to need them anymore because we're going to create a dashboard that will make it a lot easier for us to see what projects we have and what their status is. So I've created several sample projects and given them some metadata that we can work with. The tags tell us that it's a project. We're going to be able to search either by the project folder or the project tag. I've got a deadline, an area that these belong to, and then a status. Now, before we can do anything with this, we have to install the Dataview plugin. So we're going to go over to Settings, we're going to go to Community Plugins, and then we're going to make sure that the Dataview plugin is installed. So actually, I'm going to delete it really fast just so you can see the process. We'll go to Browse. Dataview is a very popular plugin, so it's going to appear right up at the top. So you can click on it, hit Install, and then enable it. Now there are tons of settings that you can do for Dataview. For the purposes of this video, we're actually not going to worry about changing any of the settings. What we want to do is things that are right out of the box, easy to do. So now that we've got the Dataview plugin installed, we can actually start building our dashboard. Now I'm going to go up to my utilities folders where I have all sorts of files that are kind of helper files. So we're going to create a new canvas for our dashboard. And then we're going to go down to the bottom here and drag to add a card. And we're going to drag it up. And we're going to make a list of all the projects that we have in our vault. So I'm going to label this with a header. We're going to say all projects. And then we're going to do 3 backticks. The backtick is the key right next to the 1 on the left of it. And then we write the word Dataview so it knows that this is a Dataview query. And then we're just going to say list. We're going to do it all caps so that we recognize this as a list. And then I'm going to give it a source that I want the list to be made from. So in this case, the projects folder. So I'm going to say from, and then I'm going to put in quotes, and then the name of the folder. Then I'm going to go down to these 3 backticks at the bottom and hit enter. And now you can see we have a nice list of all of our projects. And we can click on these and open them up, and we can see those different projects. And we could just hover over them and see the contents as well. That is as simple as it can get when it comes to Dataview, and there's a lot that you can do with just lists of different notes. Now if we want to get back into editing this query, we just hover over this list and we get this little code icon that shows up in the top right. We can click on this and we'll get back into the source code for this query. Now I want to be able to group these different projects by their status. As you can see in here, each of these projects has a status, and I want this list to have them grouped by that status. Let's go back over here. Now, in order for this grouping to make sense, so let me show you really fast. When you say group by, this is how you make a grouping, and I say status, that just gives me each of the statuses that are available across these different projects. I don't just want the status, I want to be able to see what the files are, get the links to them. So in order to be able to do that, we have to tell the list that we want the link to the file. So for this, we're going to say rows.file.link, and that will give us our statuses, and it will show us each of the files underneath those statuses, or that have those statuses. Now, this might get a little bit big. If we have every done project in here, this list is going to get really long. So we want to split these up between different cards inside of our dashboard here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to grab another card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a card for each of these statuses. So for this, I'm going to say holding tank. So holding tank is our future projects. We haven't started working on them yet. Enter a couple times, and we're going to write a Dataview query. We're going to say list, and then we're going to say from, and we're going to go for our projects folder. And then we want just the ones that have the status of holding tank. So we're going to say where status equals holding tank. So now we have our 2 projects that have the status of holding tank in this card. So let's go ahead and create the other ones. So now we've got those cards for each of the statuses, and it's a little easier kind of now to see the position of where these projects are. So we've got ones that are not yet started, we've got ones that are actively being worked on, and then we've got projects that are done. And this list can grow and grow and grow. It's not going to make it hard to find my holding tank projects, things that I want to do later. So it's nice that we've got these lists separated out, but I want to see a little bit more information about each of the projects at a glance here. So right now we've been working with lists. There's another query type that we can do, and that is table. We're going to zoom in on the holding tank card, and then we're going to click on this query, and we're going to change this from list to table. And with table, we can set different columns of data that we want to be able to see. So let's go ahead and say status, and then I'm going to capitalize the column name here by saying as status. So you can change what the column name is just by saying as and then putting in quotes what you want it to be called. So let's go back out here. So now as you can see, we've got the files listed here, and then we've got their status. Now we already know that the status is holding tank, so we don't actually really want to put status here. The other metadata that we have available to us in these projects, we have a deadline, we have an area in which they belong. We also have a tag, but the tag is just project. That's actually something else that we can do. So from here, we've been querying for the project from the folder that they live in. We can actually also say from project from the tag. So this could live anywhere inside of our vault. I could put it at the top level, I could put it inside utilities, whatever, and it would find it no matter where it was. I actually like working with tags better because of this reason. I can have files in any location I want inside of my vault, and as long as they have the right tag, I can find them with my Dataview queries. Now, one caveat with using tags with Dataview is that as you can see, I am now getting this project file showing up. This is the template that I used to create new projects, and it of course has a tag of project in it. I don't want that showing up in every list, so what I'm going to do is go back into my query, and I can say minus and then a folder name, and that will make it so it says get all the files that have the tag of project that don't live inside of the templates. And we are going to need to put an and in here, otherwise that won't work. So now we're just getting the projects that are actual projects, not the template. So now let's also go back in here, and we're going to actually say deadline. We're going to say as deadline. So now we can see we have some deadlines here. Now, what's neat about this too now is that we have these different columns of information. I can now sort them according to that column. So I can now say sort deadline. So now that doesn't change anything because it was already sorting by the date. Now, if we wanted to change the order, we could say descending. And now November 9th is the one that's on top. October 31st is the bottom. So now this is newest to oldest rather than oldest to newest. So let's go ahead and add our area in here as well. So we're going to put a comma, and we're going to say area as area. And now we can see what area it belongs to as well. I actually want to switch those around. And which order you put these columns in matters. So if I want area to show up first, I just put it first. And now area is here, deadline is last. And what's nice is that I can click into an area and go into it from this table, from this dashboard if I wanted to. Another really good thing that you can do with a dashboard like this is you can create a calendar, like a little mini calendar. So let's go over to our active here. I'm going to switch this to be a calendar. And with a calendar, we have to provide it a date that we want for this to pull from. So we're going to say deadline, and we're going to do where the status is active. And then this puts in a little calendar for us. And you can see there's a little dot next to the 15th. That is the deadline for one of our projects. I can actually click on this and go to that project. Let's add a task of complete user test And then I can go back over to my dashboard here, and when I hover over this, we'll be able to differentiate it. So we can hover over this and see the project that has a deadline on the 15th. We can see the contents of that project just by hovering over this. And we can do that for the one here as well. So this is kind of nice. It kind of gives you a quick glance of when projects are due. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you the title of the project, so you kind of have to just know what the project is based on the contents, but you can click on it and go to that project and see more information about it. Believe it or not, that's the majority of what you need in order to get started with Dataview. Let's go back into this query real fast. If we look at this, so you can do a table, you can do a list, and you can group that list based on different metadata that you have in your notes that you're querying. You can have this little mini calendar. You can specify where you want the data to come from. If you didn't have a from, it would just pull all the notes that you have in your vault. So you can do it by tag, and you can do it by folder. Using this where statement, you can filter out the notes even further. You can sort them by the different metadata as well. Now, I have used Dataview for a long time, and I still forget sometimes the syntax for these queries. It's a lot to remember. So something that I've done to make things easier on myself, I've actually created some templates that I can use to insert these queries wherever I want them. So I've got a query for my lists, and I've got a query for table. If I want to be able to insert these somewhere, let's just go over to this sample project, and I can go here, and I can go to insert a template, and I can say I want a Dataview table query, and that puts that right in there for me, and I change the column name to be status, and we're going to say status, and then I'll go ahead and just do by a folder name, and this is going to be projects, and then I've got my query ready to go.
The biggest thing I missed when switching from Notion to Obsidian was the ability to make attractive yet useful dashboards. I loved having little snapshots of notes and projects right at my fingertips, and this just wasn't as easy to do in Obsidian. The introduction of Canvas files went a long way towards creating dashboards in Obsidian, but they lacked the visual excitement I got from Notion, plus Canvas files are super finicky on mobile. However, thanks to a few helpful community plugins, we can now get pretty close to replicating Notion's dashboard aesthetic. In this video, I'll show you how to create a Notion-like dashboard inside of Obsidian, so that you can keep on top of your most important notes and projects. So I'll be demonstrating how to build this dashboard inside of my Task Manager vault that I have been building up over the course of a few of my videos. If you'd like to be able to follow along with me, you can actually find download links for the vault in the description below. So we're going to need to install a couple of community plugins. So let's go to the settings. We're going to go to Community Plugins, go to Browse. We've already got one of the plugins, which is the Dataview plugin, installed in this vault. The other one that we're going to need is one called Pixel Banner. It's right here. We're going to go ahead and install it and enable. And it's going to come up with this little What's New banner. You can just dismiss that. And then we're going to go into the options. Now, this plugin has a lot of options. I'm not going to be going over each one. There's just so many of them. I'm just going to adjust a couple of them. We're going to go first to this content start position. I want to change this to be 400. The reason being is because the banner height, as you can see down here, is 350. I want all of my content to be below the banner. That's how it is in Notion. If I didn't set this to 400, the banner, the content would overlap the banner and can kind of make things hard to see depending on the colors of the banner. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to make the border radius 0. Otherwise, it will have rounded edges. You could keep that. I prefer to have it off for right now. I'm also going to scroll down to the default banner icon X position. And I'm going to take this slider and I'm going to move it over to 0. That way the icon is as far to the left as it will go. So that's all I'm going to do inside of the Pixel Banner settings for right now. We're going to close that. And now I'm going to create my dashboard note. So hit the new note button and we're going to type in dashboard, hit enter. And as you can see here up in the left corner, there's like this tag looking button.
This is the button that allows us to be able to add a banner via the Pixel Banner plugin. But before I do that, I want there to be a folder where I'm saving all of the images that I'm using inside of this vault. So I'm going to create a new folder. We're going to call it _extras. And then real quick, I need to go to settings, files and links, and default location for new attachments is going to be in the folder specified below. I want it to be extras. So I'm going to close the sidebar, get it out of the way, and then I'm going to click this tag button. And it allows you to be able to search for images that are already in your vault, or you can upload a new image. So we're going to upload a new image, and I'm going to grab my Creative Labs banner here, open that up, and it has a default of pixel banner images for the folder to save these attachments to. I just created the extras folder, so that's where I want it to go. The file name is fine that way. We're going to hit save, and now this dashboard has a banner image. So you can see I've got a little bit of a fade going on here. If we go back over into our settings, go down to Pixel Banner, we can adjust that fade. If you like it fading like that, you can keep it like it is. If you want it to not fade, you move this all the way over to the right hand up to the 100, and then that will have no fade on it. I'm actually going to go back to the default real fast because I want to see what it looks like in dark mode. Because this is a light banner, it's not really showing up very well for us. So I'm going to go back over to appearance. Base color scheme I'm going to change to dark. So let's see what that looks like. So that's what the fade looks like on this banner here. It actually doesn't look too bad. Let's just, for the heck of it, let's see what it looks like without the fade. So Pixel Banner, the banner fade, we're going to turn that up to 100. As you can see, it's a solid line now, which is much more like what it is inside of Notion. So we're going to keep it like this. So now we've got a banner image. Another thing that we can do is add an icon, just like you can in Notion, and that's done by clicking on this star here. You can search for emojis. For now, let's do this smiley face. And now we have a smiley face icon. It puts it in the same position as it does inside of Notion. So right now this banner is taking up quite a bit of real estate. It's not going to be useful to me if I have to keep scrolling down in order to be able to actually see the dashboard information. So we're going to go back into the settings again of Pixel Banner, and we're going to adjust the banner height. So let's reduce it by 100, and with that we can reduce this down just 300. So now that's taking up a lot less room, and it is getting cut off a little bit. We can adjust the position of the banner inside of here. Can set the image vertical position to be a little bit higher up. Let's go to 60 or so. Let's go just a little bit more up. So let's go to 70 and see what that looks like. Okay, maybe a bit too far. It's a bit of a trial and error here. Let's go to 65. Closing that. And that looks pretty good. I've got it all inside. So now we've got our banner in place and our icon. We're starting to look a little bit more like Notion now. Let's get some widgets in place. I'm going to go ahead and collapse the properties to get those out of the way. In this vault, I've already set up a dashboard using a Canvas file. Inside of that, I had a few Dataview queries that I was using to get these different project files pulled in. I'm just going to go ahead and use those same queries here. So let's go ahead and open up that dashboard. It's this projects dashboard. And I'm going to start with the active projects. Just so we're aware of what this is doing, let's go ahead and zoom in a bit so we can see this query. Query is we're creating a table. We have a column of area and a column of deadline. We're grabbing all of the projects that have the tag of project where the status equals active, and we're sorting by the deadline descending. We actually want to do ascending because that way the oldest or the project that's due soonest will appear first. So yeah, there we go. So let's go ahead and copy that Dataview query. We're going to go back over to the dashboard. And for this, I'm going to use Obsidian's callouts to make kind of a nice looking box for this to live in, nice looking widget. Do a call out, we just do a greater than sign and then some square brackets, an exclamation mark, And I want my call out to have like a little check mark. So we're going to say check. We're going to say active projects for the title. And then we're going to paste this. We need to make sure that each of these lines has that greater than sign in front of it. And voila, we now have this active projects widget that looks really nice. And if we want to be able to edit the code of it, we can just click on this edit this block. Now, if we wanted to, going back into here, Obsidian callouts can be made to be collapsible. So we can put a little plus next to the check, and now we have this little downward arrow here, and I can click on that and it will collapse that. So maybe we don't want to have all of these different widgets open at the same time, we can make them collapsible like that. If you wanted it to be collapsible or collapsed by default, you could just do a minus there, and then it's collapsed by default. So if there's something that you don't need access to all the time, but it's nice to have that you want there, you can do it collapsed. I want this to be open by default, so we're going to put the plus back in. All right, now I'm going to create a widget for the other status of project, which is holding tank. Let's go back over to the project's dashboard, and we're going to just move over here, click on this, and this query is virtually the same as the one that we had before. We definitely want that to be ascending. The status is holding tank this time instead of active, so we're going to copy that, go back over to our dashboard. We're going to create another call out. This one I'm going to put as example, because it puts like a little list icon next to the title, and this is going to be holding tank. These are the projects that we are not yet working on, they're not active. Go in and make sure that all of these have that caret, and now we have our holding tank widget. The holding tank one, I do want it to be collapsed by default because we don't need to see what's in it all the time. So we've got a pretty nice looking dashboard going here. The one thing that we can't do without getting into some CSS code is being able to put these widgets side by side. That's something that you can do in Notion, but you can't do that by default in Obsidian. So that's why it is nice to have the ability to collapse things. I want to add one more widget in here. This one will not be based on a Dataview query. This is just going to be some links to other files inside of our vault. Inside of this vault in particular, I have this series of utility files that have different views. This vault has a plugin called Tasks that is a plugin that will aggregate all the different tasks throughout the vault and based on different queries. So if I go into this today view, for instance, this is a utility file that pulls in all of the tasks that are due today or before today. So we've got quite a few in here that we haven't done yet. And I want to be able to link to these different utility files from our dashboard. So going back to the dashboard, I'm just going to go above active projects, and then we're going to create another call out. Let's do TLDR. That gives us a little clipboard icon to the side of the title, and this is going to be links. And then I'm just going to create backlinks to these different things. So we're going to say inbox, today, upcoming, deadlines, anytime, someday. Needs to be a link. So hit enter twice, and now we have this nice links widget that has links to all these different utility files that we want to work in. And with the links, this is another one that I feel like should be collapsed by default. And now we've got the makings of a nice looking Notion-like dashboard inside of Obsidian.
Would you like database-style organization in your Obsidian Vault, but are tired of trying to learn complex Dataview queries? Well, I've got good news for you. In this video, we'll be exploring Projects, an easy-to-use plugin that enables us to organize our notes in various different types of views: tables, Kanban boards, image galleries, and calendar views. Let's dive right in.
The first thing we need to do is install the plugin. So let's go over to Settings, click on the gear icon in the bottom left, and we're going to go to Community Plugins, go to Browse, we're going to search for Projects. That's this first one that's popped up here. Hit Install, enable it, and then we're going to go take a look at the various options that it gives us. First off, you can limit the number of notes that the project pulls in. The default is 1,000 notes. The reason why this limit exists is because it can really slow things down if you're allowing just thousands and thousands of notes to be pulled into the project. The link behavior setting allows us to be able to control what happens when you click on an item in one of the views. By default, it opens up this little editor box that allows you to be able to make some edits from the project's plugin itself. The other option is to open up the note and be able to edit it from there. I like having it open the note, so that's what I'm going to set it as. It allows you to be able to change what day of the week that the calendar view starts on. I'm just going to leave it as the default, which I believe is Sunday. You can go in here and change it to Monday if you'd like. Then we have this quote string setting. To be honest, I've never used that setting, so I'm not really sure what it does. I'm not sure if it makes it so that the front matter properties have quotes around them. If anybody knows, please let me know in the comments. Moving on to commands. This is an area that will actually get populated as we create projects inside of the plugin. This allows you to be able to have commands that will allow you to open the project plugin via the command prompt, or you can actually set hotkeys to these different commands so you can quickly open your projects. And then here you can see you can archive projects when you're no longer needing them, but you don't want to delete them. And that's it for the settings. There's really not a lot to them, which I really appreciate. Before creating our first project, I did want to back up a step. I want to go back to the community plugin page for the project. I wanted to scroll down to the design philosophy section here. One thing that I love about this plugin is this idea of leaving no trace. If you're using the Dataview plugin, for instance, you have to include Dataview blocks inside of your notes. Now, if Obsidian were ever to go away and you want to look at your notes from a different app, those blocks won't mean anything inside of another app. They only mean something inside of Obsidian. The thing that this plugin does is it creates a separate view of your notes, and you don't have to put any sort of plugin specific code into your notes. So if you were to leave Obsidian, or the project's plugin were to ever go away, it would leave nothing behind. All right, let's go ahead and start using this plugin by creating our first project. Projects plugin gave us this little square icon in the left sidebar, so we're going to click on that. And because we don't have any projects created yet, it comes up with this kind of welcome window. I'm going to go ahead and click this Create New Project button, and I'm going to call this Projects. We're going to set this as the default project, so whenever we open the Projects plugin, this is the default one that it will open with. We have 3 different options for our source. We can either pull everything from a specific folder, we can grab everything that has a certain tag, and if it turns out you really do like Dataview queries, you can use those to populate your project as well. The caveat to using Dataview is it makes your project read-only. You can't add new notes to the project from the Projects plugin. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to pick tag, and then I'm going to say project for the tag. If you have nested tags like underneath the project tag that you want to be able to include, you turn this tag hierarchy setting on. I like turning it on even if I don't currently have any nested tags, so that way if I ever did have a nested tag in the future, it would still show up inside my project. That is a very similar thing to how folders work. When you pick a folder, if you want to be able to include folders within that folder, subfolders, you turn that setting on. So these are very similar in how they're set up. Go over to tag again, and I'm going to use a tag of project. Turn that tag hierarchy back on. And then there's a few more settings that it gives us. We can decide where we want those new notes to appear. So even though I'm using the project tag, maybe there's a specific folder I want these to show up in. I can set it there. You can set a default name for new notes, and you can have a few variables in here. So if you wanted to have like the day and the time, you could include them in there. If you want new notes that you create from the project plugin to have a specific template, you can do that here. I do have a project template, so I'm going to add that. And then you can exclude notes from showing up in your project. This is useful because my project template has the tag of project in it, and I don't want the template to be showing up in my views. So I'm going to go ahead and exclude that. All right, I'm going to hit Create Project. And as you can see, it pulls in all of the notes that have the tag of project. And the default view that it gives us is a table view. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the sidebar for now so we can see better, and has all the different properties that these notes have as our column headers. One thing we can do is we can resize the columns, we can configure this field, we can say what type it is. Oh, changing type isn't supported yet. This allows you to be able to create options. So if there's like set things that you want to be able to put inside this field, you can do that here. Let's actually go back over to this area one. For this, I want there to be personal and then work. So those are the areas that I have. Then I can hit save. And then when I want to add a new note, just call this sample project 6, create note. And then double clicking on it will give us those options that I put in there. So we're going to make this a work project. Double clicking on a field will allow you to edit the field. So we're going to give this a deadline. You can rearrange the columns by clicking and holding down, and then you can move them around. So I can switch those two if I wanted to. A couple other features that tables have. You can click on this color button here and add a color, and you can pick a color. It's kind of orangey color, and then you have different options of what you can apply this color to. As you can see, it added it to this left side here. So I'm going to say where the area contains personal. So now these colors, this color gets applied to whichever one of these projects has personal as its area. This is kind of like a filtering kind of idea. You can add, I'm going to add another color, and we'll add that where area contains work. So now at a glance, based on the color, I can see, oh, this is a personal project, this is a work project. You can apply filters to the table by clicking on this filter button, and I could say where area contains personal. So then that will show me just the ones that have the area of personal in them. And then you can also tell it how to sort. We're going to sort it by area, and we're going to make it Z to A. So work comes first, then personal afterwards, although we all know personal should come first. And then you can decide what fields you want to be able to show. So maybe I don't really care about the path. I can hide that. You can turn these on and off to give you just the view that you want. So that's the table view. You can make it so that maybe you want to have a table that shows just your personal projects. So let's add a view. We'll make another table. We're going to call this personal. And this is, we want it in the projects project. And then here I'm going to filter where area contains personal. And now that just shows me my personal projects. And then I can go back to this table here, and I can rename this to work by double clicking on it. And I can say filter where area contains work. So now I can see my work projects in one table, and then I can click on personal, and I can see the personal projects in another table. So you can create all sorts of different views. It's very similar to how Notion's views work, if you're familiar with those. So let's look at a different type of view. Click on this plus button, and we're going to see what a board looks like. And we're going to call this Kanban board. We're going to add the view. And it puts all of our projects into the board, and it has no status. We need to set which property we're going to use for our status. So we're going to use the status property. So we've got 3 different statuses that exist amongst these projects, and I want active and holding tank and done to be in different positions. So I'm going to click and drag done over here, and then holding tank I'm going to drag over here so that there's a progression on the board. Now, if I'm ready to start working on sample project 1, I can click on this and drag it over into the active column, and that now has a status of active. If we click on this, we'll open up the project, and we can see it updates the status to be active. So this is useful if you want to be able to kind of see an overview of where each of these projects are. You can have different stages that these projects go through, and you can track them all here on this board. I'm not really sure what this check setting does. It's grayed out, so I guess we'll just move on from it from now. You can include different fields on these cards. So right now it's just the title of the note, but maybe I want the area to be showing, so it'll show me which area. Maybe I want a deadline on there as well. And we already know the status because that's the column names. And then over here on settings, you can change the width of the column. The default is 270 pixels. That looks fine. You can have a field on the card act as a header. So if you have an image, you can set that property here. And then also you can have an order field, and you can sync that order field with the position of the cards in the board using this setting. And then you can use the same color, filter, sort that you can on table if you'd like. Some additional options show up here. When you click on these three dots, you can rename the column, you can collapse the column so that it's not showing anymore. You can pin the column, although I'm not really sure what that does. It didn't move or anything like that, and it still lets me move it around. So not really sure what that is. And then you can also delete the column if you'd like. Going up here to the plus button, let's create another view. We're going to create a calendar view this time. We'll call this deadlines. And then we have a few options here. The date is automatically set with the deadline property because that is the only one that is a date type of property. And you can have it show 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, 1 day, or a month view. Let's click on the month view, and we can see that sample project 6 has a deadline of February 28th, so it's showing up here on the calendar. Let's go back to the previous month and see if we can find any other ones. Okay, yeah. When I created this vault, it was back in October, so all of these sample projects have deadlines showing up in like the October-November range. But you can see where projects are due on the calendar here. You can apply colors, filters, and sorting just like you can on the other views as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the last view, and that's a gallery. Call it gallery. This is if you have images that you would like to see displayed in a gallery. I don't have any images assigned in this particular vault, but if we go over to another one of my vaults, I have this gallery made up of all of the different sketch notes that I have made. Clicking on one of these, I can show you what the properties look like. In this vault, I have them in the sidebar. I have an image field that has this path to this image that you're seeing here, and a tag of sketch note. That's how I'm grabbing all of these. So let's go back to the projects view, and the cover setting is using that image field as the cover of these cards. And then you can either have the image fit inside of the box, or you can have it fill. So it fills the edge, but it cuts it off a little bit. So I like having it be fit so you can see the whole image. And then you can also decide what fields you want to include. Maybe I want the author. Some of these are books, so some of them will have an author field. And you can have a color, a filter, a sort. Then in this little gear icon, we can set the width of each of the cards. So maybe I wanted these to be 200 instead of 300. Now I can see more cards in a single view than I could before. Now that we've got a project created, let's go back to the settings, and we'll go down to projects. And now, because we have all these different views created inside of the projects, we can use these commands. So let's say I want to be able to jump to my Kanban board quickly. So I turn that one on, and then I can open my command palette. You can also do Command P or Control P if you're on Windows. And I can type in projects and then show projects Kanban board, and that will open up right to my Kanban board. I can also in the settings go over to hotkeys, and we're going to say projects, and I'm going to assign this command to be Shift Command K, K for Kanban board. Let's close the projects, close the sidebar, and then I do Shift Command K, boom, it opens straight up to my Kanban board. I love how easy this plugin is to get into and start using. It really doesn't take too much configuration time, and it allows you to be able to see your notes in all these different views and contexts. I have personally found this plugin to be very useful, very helpful, and I hope it does the same for you. Let me know in the comments if you decide to give it a try, and let me know how you're using it, how it's benefiting you and your vault. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in more videos about project management inside of Obsidian, you can check out my project management playlist.